Alexander Coach Builder's ALX400 bus body appeared in 1997 as part of the first low-floor chassis double-decker, Arriva's DLA1. 18 years later, similar bodywork can still be seen all over London, although the DAF-driven examples, like the one you're looking at here, are almost extinct. This programme shows you them all, whether they're sitting on top of DAFs, Tridents or Volvos. These opening shots, in stunning 4:3 ratio, are a selection from the ALX400's early years, before the red all over requirement was imposed on London bus operators. Stagecoach buses had the multicoloured rear end, which later gave way to this on the East London fleet. Coming up, go-ahead's grey and yellow on the short-lived AVL type, similar to Arriva's BLAs. Metroline skirts went up and down, but usually featured more blue than the Stagecoach design. Here's another of Cricklewood's Tridents, working the 16 in Park Lane. London United had 2 shades of grey, rather than 50, and also incorporated some white. These Tridents were based at Shepherd's Bush for the 148, like today's LTs. The French-owned Connex, whose routes are now operated by the Dutch-owned Abellio, also opted for the blue skirt, while Arriva applied a tasteful yellow line and the so-called cow horns, although personally I've never seen a cow with horns. And First Group had its intertwined ribbons in yellow and white. By far the most numerous combination is the 10.5 metre ALX400 on the Dennis Trident chassis. Metroline's TAL132, L for long, arrives at the Kilburn Park stand of Route 32. Dennis and Alexander joined together with Plaxton to form the ill-fated Transbus Consortium in 2001. From the wreckage of that arose Alexander Dennis Limited, further cementing the link between the ALX400 and the Trident undercarriage. Metroline was a good customer for the Trident, but generally preferred the Plaxton President body. The TALs then were fairly rare. First Group adopted a similar policy, so 10.5 metre Tridents with the ALX400 body were equally few in number. The TNA type code distinguished them from long Tridents with President bodywork, known as TNLs. For many years they were regular performers on the central London tourist Route 23. Here's one approaching the Royal Courts of Justice. And obviously they appeared at other iconic locations, like the Bank of England, Marble Arch, and in Regent Street. But what makes the 10.5 metre Trident ALX combination so numerous is Stagecoach. This is 17001, or TA1, the first of many hundreds. TA1, the first low-floor Trident, appeared 2 years after DLA1. TA1 was part of a batch of 98 built in 1999 to a low bridge height of 4.2 metres, so they didn't last very long. This one is full height, 4.4 metres, like the rest that followed. From 2000 onwards, Stagecoach ordered another 684 of the longer Trident. That was 17801, which, like 17871, was built in the Transbus era in 2003. This is Rosebery Avenue by Clerkenwell Fire Station, before the 55 went Boris. From the same big batch, 17750 on the 55, in the scruffy end of Oxford Street. Two more, A10 and 809, meet near the Great Titchfield Street stop. The Route 55 allocation often spilled into other Leighton Garage routes. Here's 17781 on the 56 in Goswell Road. Not the prettiest part of London either. Before Stagecoach lost the 26 to First Group in 2011, Tridents were the mainstay of the route. 17294 on the last leg of its journey to Waterloo. This one is approaching from the east in Fleet Street. (17171) crosses Waterloo Bridge. After the route loss, many of this early batch was shipped off to Stagecoach operations outside of London. Later vehicles, like 18233 here in Aldwych, were reallocated within London. Route 8 was also 100% Trident before the new route masters came along. 18221 arrives back at the garage, where the 8 buses stand between journeys alongside the 205s. A long Trident with a 3/4 advert wrap leaves by the other door. (18220) is also bound for central London, but hasn't changed its blind. Then again, it hasn't yet reached the first stop by Bow Church. (18210) approaches the one-way system by St Paul's Underground Station while heading east. Because of Crossrail work, the 8 is currently curtailed at Tottenham Court Road. 18213 completes another journey beneath the Centre Point Tower. In the City of London, 18206 restarts from the traffic lights beside number 1 Poultry. (18230), running west in Bishopsgate, is about to make the stop outside Liverpool Street Station. Meanwhile, back at the garage, 18217 illustrates the earlier point about the 205. The route converted to Enviro 400 hybrids in 2014, and coupled with the LT conversions of routes 8 and 15, this pretty much cleared out all the Tridents from Bow. Except for the odd one on the 277. Another that was once all Trident, the route is now worked by Scania Omni Cities, displaced from the 205. 18212 near Mile End in May 2011. This is from a batch of 65 built in 2004, so technically the last to appear under the Transbus brand. Stagecoach's final batch of 49 ADL buses in 2005-06 brought total orders for both lengths of Trident to a neat and round 1,000. But I wouldn't swear they were all in traffic at the same time. (18230) on an early morning run in Regent Street, before the 15 was cut back to Trafalgar Square. (18222) at the southern end of Regent Street, on its way to start a journey from the old stand in Conduit Street. The new route masters deployed in 2014 have never reached this far on the 15 because of the adjustment. (17879) climbs towards Piccadilly Circus after the St James's stop in January 2012. The destination blind has been changed rather early, unless of course it's come all the way from Bow like this. (17920) heading west at Tower Gateway. And 18217 approaching the bus gate at the eastern end of Great Tower Street. Rapidly pursued by the following 15 while the gate is still open. Heading into the furthest reaches of the East London Bus Company reveals North Street's 17744 running empty to Romford Station to start a Route 86 journey. 17764 emerges from the gloom of Atlanta Boulevard and makes its first stop outside Romford Station. One digit down, 17763 rounds the North Street roundabout while heading north on the 103. The process of converting Trident routes like the 103 at North Street has been less drastic than at Bow, but the numbers continue to dwindle all the same. So most days you're more likely to find Enviro 400s working the 103 than the earlier design. This shot though is from 2011. A Trident on the 175 passes the Mercury Gardens roundabouts and heads for the station. The 18471 approaches North Street Garage on the 247, a route which is still 100% Trident as I write these notes in July 2015. The 18451 approaches the bus park at the end of Atlanta Boulevard, where the 86 shares its stand with 7 other routes. (17763) again in North Street. The 175 also continues to be all Trident in 2015. Route 5 is operated from Barking, where all the buses on the garage's allocation run on a mixture of diesel and recycled cooking fat. Apparently this requires no modification to the bus itself and cuts down on diesel particulate emission because it uses less diesel fuel. (17359) in Raynham Road North before starting a Route 5 journey. A look at some West Ham Tridents now, starting with the 15. When Upton Park Garage closed in 2011, most of its routes transferred to West Ham, so the 15's large allocation was moved out to Bow, which is what you saw earlier. Both of these shots were taken before the change in 2011 around Aldwych. Moving back east to Ilford, 18458. From the very last Trident batch, sets off from Ilford Bus Park on a 147 journey to the docks. (17943) leaves the new West Ham garage before starting work on the 147. The route has an allocation of 20 long Tridents and remains untouched in 2015. But the contract is due for renewal in May 2016 and there may be some new buses then. Later the same day, 18460 comes in on changeover. In the background you can see one of the trainer Tridents showing off the old swirly livery. (18462) heads out to work Route 69 to the accompaniment of seagulls overhead. It's planned to introduce all-electric double-deckers onto the 69 later in 2015. Time to cross the river now and consider the Selkent half of the Stagecoach London operation. Bromley's 17970 returns to the garage after working school route 637. Tridents have also declined in this area because of several enviro influxes. Catford's lengthy Route 47 calls for 20 long Tridents, although much newer enviros also appear. The routes will convert fully to brand new hybrids in January 2016. The 47 features the final batch of Stagecoach Tridents, among them 18499, the very last of the type delivered to the company. 17954 on the edge of the Thamesmead estate in southeast London. The 177 converted to Enviro 400 MMC hybrids in June 2015, displacing yet more ALX400 bodywork. .17959 near Plumstead Garage in 2012. The 472, once another all Trident route, is slowly converting as new vehicles arrive at the garage. The 2014 batches of Enviro hybrids also converted the 122. The route terminates at Plumstead and its buses stand on the garage forecourt between journeys alongside the 53s. 17403 manoeuvres onto an inspection pit inside the garage in 2012 while we were making the Plumstead Delivers programme. And it brings our extended look at Stagecoach's long Tridents to a close, all 782 of them. But we're not done with this ALX400 combination yet, because a number also remain with London United on the west side of the capital. A survivor of the three-tone livery scheme crosses Westminster Bridge in 2011. A vision of the past now, as all was swept away by the 148 LT conversion at the start of 2014. Even so, Shepherd's Bush Tridents can still be found on Route 94 in July 2015. TLA 16 at Turnham Green. Soon after, TLA 21 appears while en route to Piccadilly. At the last count, 14 remained at Shepherd's Bush, working alongside the hybrids on the 94. And just to emphasise their longevity, here's TLA 21 again, after its repaint in 2013. Eight similar vehicles remain at Fulwell, where they can appear on any of the double-deck routes. This is TLA 5 working with 57 on the South Circular Road near Streatham. We finally reached the end of the 10.5 metre Trident chassis buses with this shot at Streatham Hill. There were originally 389 ALX400 body buses mounted on the DAF DB250 low-floor chassis as the DLA type. In July 2015, the remaining handful are hanging on by their fingernails, but back in March 2011, we could still have found them working Route 243 in its entirety. All of them were replaced by late model Gemini 2s after major cascades through Arriva's North London fleet. The cascades were generated both by major LT conversions and by route losses, and as is usual, the oldest buses suffered the worst. All of Tottenham's DLAs had vanished by the middle of 2014. which meant the 41 also converted to later Geminis. Here's DLA 240 passing Route 91 stand at Crouch End in May 2011. The 279 converted entirely to brand new Enviro 400s early in 2012 after a contract renewal, so DLA 131 is very much a late straggler. Before Gemini 2s took over Route 121 as well, a 10.6 metre DLA passes Enfield Garage. This is DLA 151 at Enfield Island Village during the conversion in 2013. The majority of the DLAs were 10.2 metre, like this one from the Route 34 allocation heading back from Barnet on the Great North Road. Near the same spot on the same day, DLA 350 on its way to Barnet. All of these were displaced when Arriva lost the 34 to Metroline in November 2014, although some of Palmer's Green allocation resurfaced temporarily on the 125. Here we go, two of them passing each other now in Eversley Park Road on the 125 in January 2015. The 125 Swan Song attracted quite a lot of interest because of the hilly nature of the route and the ancient motive power tackling it. Here's DLA 368 turning into Winchmore Hill Road. And DLA 360 in Green Dragon Lane. All this was short-lived. Arriva lost the 125 to Metroline as well at the end of January 2015. And now both routes are wall-to-wall Volvo powered Gemini 3s. Which is fine, if you like that sort of thing. So let's round off with two more shots from the ups and downs section of the 125. DLA 358 after turning into Eversley Park Road. And two more passing each other in Green Dragon Lane. Although there's only two DLAs left in North London on school journeys now, and they're unlikely to resurface after the summer holidays, you can still find a batch of 11 alive and well in the TfL area of Arriva Shires, where they work routes 142, 258 and 340 from Garston Garage. This is 6017 in April 2013. Near the same spot in Whitchurch Lane, 6021 heads for Harrow in July 2015. (6024) in Marsh Lane. Although they do work the 3 routes, most can be found on the 340 day to day. (6023) meets 6017 on the outskirts of Edgware. (6024) on the last few miles into Edgware. There are some very photogenic spots along these routes, and one short section north of Harrow where the 258 and 340 run alongside each other. (6019) rounds off the North London DAFs. Although some of the Shires buses have been withdrawn, there's no sign of this small group disappearing yet. Just enter ASE 6015 to 6025 into London Vehicle Finder and their whereabouts will be revealed. This length combination of ALX400 body and Volvo B7L chassis is only found with the Riva. There are 73 vehicles, DLA 1 to 73, and all are allocated to Norwood Garage in South London. They can be found on any of the surviving double-deck routes at Norwood, but the 2 is the best bet. Most days the entire allocation is VLA, although the odd Enviro 400 can sometimes appear. The peak vehicle requirement is 24, often with shorter Volvos mixed in, and the journey from Norwood to Marylebone Station can often be a bit of a slog. Still, if you're only taking photos, the frequency is good. That was VLA 51 at Vauxhall Bus Station, and this is VLA something else crossing Vauxhall Bridge. Before it lost the route to Abellio, Norwood operated the 415 with a mixture of VLA and DLA. VLA 27 in the Tottenham Court Road diversion at the end of a Route 176 journey. Like the 2, the 176 is usually all 10.6 metre buses. And it soaks up 28 vehicles at peak periods. DLA 11 picks up in Waterloo Road, opposite the mainline station. The journey out to Penge can sometimes take 90 minutes. The 176 contract has been extended under the Quality Incentive Scheme, so expect the long Volvos to be around for another 2 years yet. DLA 30 approaches Waterloo northbound and is about to stop outside the Old Vic Theatre. DLA 36 southbound at St George's Circus, which is now unrecognisable. More cow halls appear from the direction of the Strand and approach Waterloo Bridge. I still think that should be bull horns. The 417 is the only 400 route left at Norwood after the recent losses. DLA 45 in Streatham Place en route to Clapham Common. In the opposite direction, the DLA 37 heads for Crystal Palace. DLA 28 emerges from the South Circular Road and turns into Streatham Hill. It will shortly pass the other Arriva garage, called Brixton for some reason. And finally, from a daily allocation of 11, DLA 60 in Streatham Place. For the other Norwood 400s, consult the South London DAF section. The Crystal Palace TV transmitter and Route 3 announces Abellio's entry in the ALX400 Canon. This once large batch of short Tridents were the mainstay of the three until it converted to Enviro 400 hybrids in 2012. At the same time, the route switched from Beddington Croydon to the Battersea depot, and many of the Tridents moved on to other owners. There were 20 plus in daily use on the three, like 9740, here restarting in Dulwich Park Road on its journey to Oxford Circus. After slogging their way through the South London suburbs, the Tridents then had to slog through the traffic of central London via Whitehall, Trafalgar Square and Regent Street. It could often be a long job. 9764 in the southern half of Regent Street on a very quiet day for traffic. After Whitehall, the southbound journey runs past the Houses of Parliament and along Millbank, a short stretch the route shares with the 87. Lambeth Bridge is only shared with the 507, and the routing swings the buses past Lambeth Palace before they head towards Kennington and Brixton. Persistent rumours that the three's next conversion will be to LTs have so far proved unfounded. The same can be said for the 211, a conversion from Trident to Enviro Hybrid in June 2012 and no change since. Before the conversion, Battersea operated the route with around 20 short Tridents. This is 9793 at Victoria. 9782 pulls out from the Victoria coach station stop on a short working to Chelsea World's End. Behind, an 11 waits for a crew change, and the third bus is the Chelsea Flower Show special. 9780 outside the Shakespeare in 2011. The attractive limestone buildings at the start of this shot have since been demolished, and a glass monstrosity has risen in their place. A line-up of withdrawn Tridents at Battersea, all of them for sale after the Route 3 conversion. The former operator's name pokes through the faded paint on this one. After its conversion, the 211's 97 series Tridents were painted white and used as Olympic Games vehicles. Abellio's Walworth garage also has a Trident allocation, mainly for routes 172 and 381. 9830 running empty to Brockley Rise beside Peckham Rye Gardens. 9841 approaching the Old Vic stop. And 9843 turning out of the Strand towards Waterloo Bridge. Although not new, these refurbished buses were bought in specially when Abellio won the contract in 2011. The 188 used to be another Walworth Trident route, but it's been progressively upgraded with newer vehicles. Since 2012, it's become a mix of Enviro 400 hybrids and Wrightbus Geminis. Before all that happened, 9722 in the Waterloo area. And here's the view in Stamford Street near Waterloo on the final stretch of Route 381's journey to the Park Plaza Hotel. 9759. And so to Stagecoach's 9.9 metre Tridents. There were only 281 of the shorter combination, so this should be a more compact section than the last. We begin with 17575 on the 56 in Leabridge Road. Delivered in 2002 and withdrawn from Leighton Garage in July 2014. 17506 near Red Lion Square on Leighton's 55 in 2012. 17501 arrives at Aldgate bus station soon after its transfer to West Ham in 2011, still carrying the Upton Park Garage code. Meanwhile, our permanent camera outside West Ham Garage picks up a repainted 17489 going to work on the 69, most likely from the Stratford end. The Ilford bus stand reveals 17527 starting another Route 147 journey. Both this bus and the one in the last shot were built when Alexander was still a separate company. (17489) turns up again, this time on the 262 at Galleon's Reach. At contract renewal in 2014, the 262 was re-equipped with Scania's transfer from Plumstead. And if you're wondering about the Route Master, it's RML 2760 recreating Route 101 on its final day in London service. A short Trident on the 86. 17982, completing its journey at Romford Station and heading for the bus park. Slightly further out, 17534 rounds the North Street roundabout. (17569) running empty from Romford Garage to begin a Route 175 journey from Dagenham Ford Works. 17564 at Mercury Gardens in 2013. This bus is still running in July 2015, but most others in this once huge batch have been withdrawn from TfL routes. You won't find 17442 either. Another 15 or so was seen off when Bromley's 208 upgraded in July 2012. The same can be said for 17441. Although Route 61 became all Enviro as long ago as 2006, it was not uncommon for the occasional Trident to creep back. This is all blast from the past stuff now, because you won't find 9.9 metre Tridents on the 47 anymore either. So let us move on to examples you may still find on London routes. Like a London United TA in Kensington High Street. Oh no, hang on, these have all gone since Route 49 was lost to Abellio. The clear out continued in other parts of the company's area. You may still find a substantial number on Route 57, but there have been cascades through the West London fleets too. TA218 is also still going in July 2015, and most days can be found on the 371 or 391. There are around 50 surviving London United TAs, but they're all 2001 or 2002 vintage, so don't expect them to be around for much longer. TA243 in North End Road, Fulham. The driver slows down so the cameraman's father can take a still photo. Oh, that makes a change from the single finger, doesn't it? TA320 meets up with TA210 outside the Arriva garage in Streatham Hill, called Brixton. The oldest of these 2001 survivors is TA204, and they're mostly allocated to Tolworth and Fulwell. TA211 sets down at the stop on the other side of the road, just before Journey's End at Clapham Park. The 133 behind will continue down Brixton Hill to Brixton. Having just pulled off the stand, TA237 runs a short section of the South Circular Road before turning into Streatham Hill. The LT turning into Kings Avenue will have started its journey from the Arriva garage. Viewed from the other side of Stratton Place, TA238 runs back to Kingston. Using the same type code but a different number series, Metroline still has around 20 active Tridents on its books. This is an early shot of TA638 on the 266 in the Vale, East Acton. TA639 and 645 pass each other near the same spot. The 266 upgraded to Gemini 2s in 2012 when Metroline lost the route to First Centre West. Nowadays you can find Metroline's Tridents mostly on the 210 and the 32, working out of Cricklewood garage. TA646 approaches the Spaniards Inn on the northern edge of Hampstead Heath. There we go. The 210 runs to the Brent Cross Shoppers Paradise, whereat TA653 is arriving. The same bus on the 210 in Templehof Avenue. TA657 runs west along Hampstead Heath towards Jack Straw's Castle and Golders Green. And finally, TA655 departing from Brent Cross in July 2015. Again, catch them while you can. The South London DLAs held on in numbers for several months longer than the northern examples. They're going now, or will have gone by the time you watch this, because of a deliberate policy to replace them with newer vehicles. These three opening shots show the type on Route 60 operating out of South Croydon garage. This is DLA 253 doing a spot of climbing in Coulsdon in March 2012. DLA 186 in a different part of Coulsdon. Since 2006, Arriva's contract for Route 60 has always shown the DW type as the nominal motive power, but the common user approach to South Croydon's double-deck routes regularly produce DLAs until they withdraw. So while at South Croydon, they appeared on all the routes at one time or another. Here, for example, is DLA 184 on the 412 at Sanderstead, still carrying the Serving London legend. DLA 179 in the opposite direction. DLA 223 arrives back at the home garage for a changeover in June 2012, after running from the last stop beneath Croydon flyover. This should also have been a DW operated route. DLA 221 arrives empty at the garage from Purley after working on the 412. DLA 253 again. This one wasn't withdrawn while at South Croydon, but transferred to Norwood and survived until early March 2015. The 312, currently a mix of double and single deck, will receive 7 more all-electric Optares later in 2015 and become entirely single deck. After a change of driver, DLA 217 continues to Old Coulsdon. Moving on, Brixton's DLAs, once numerous, were seen off by a combination of factors. The upgrading of Route 319 with new Volvo hybrids, the conversion of the 137 to LTs, and the major loss of Route 109. DLAs worked to 159 until the start of December 2014, but were cleared out early to make room at Brixton for the critical massive LTs for the 137. The EWs from the 137 replaced the DLAs. 207 in Whitehall in 2013, still in a version of the old livery, but without these so-called cow horns. DLA 371 is showing the 159's former destination, Paddington Basin. The route was cut back to Marble Arch in 2014. DLA 330. The 159 will also convert to LTs in December 2015, but operated by Abellio. Pre-LT, a mix of old types often worked the 137. Here's DLA 338 approaching Sloane Square from the south. Norwood's DLAs were seen off by the loss of routes 415 and 432 in 2015. Back in 2011, you could still find the odd one on Route 2. DLA 255 on the 415 near Kennington Station. Despite the loss of this route, this bus survived until April 2015. From several years earlier, DLA 172 at Elephant and Castle. The last bastion of DLAs in South London was Thornton Heath Garage. 3 buses were still hanging on in July 2015, working either the 198 or the 250. This is DLA 337 beside the tram tracks at Sandylands, running empty to start work from Shrublands. From the last weeks of the type in South London, DLA 384 descending Brixton Hill, pursued by a Volvo-powered ALX400 on Route 50. And finally, DLA 385 crosses the South Circular Road at Streatham Hill shortly before passing the Arriva garage. Like the 10.6 metre Volvos, you will only find these working TfL routes for Arriva now, although we do have a few blasts from the past at the end of the section. These first two, working the 128, are based at Barking. At the last count, there were around 20, almost solely confined to the 128, but with the occasional stray on the 150. This batch was new when Arriva first won the contract in 2005. At the 2012 renewal, Enviro 400s took over, but the Volvo seemed to have crept back. VLA 84 on the 125 at Osage. 6 of Route 123's VLAs were supplied by Edmonton Garage, and the odd one sometimes strayed onto the 125. Most of the 123's allocation came from Tottenham. Since the 125 was lost, they've stuck to the 123, although Gemini 2s work the route at weekends and the VLAs have 2 days off. VLA 93 on final approach to Ilford. Currently the 123 batch runs from VLA 80 to 103 plus 124. VLA 82 had a repaint in 2014 and lost the old style livery you've seen on the other examples. Before the inward avalanche of Gemini 2s, Tottenham's VLAs also appeared on the garage's other double-deck routes. This is VLA 81 on the 41, approaching Turnpike Lane bus station in 2012. And from 2011, another one crossing Waterloo Bridge on the last quarter mile of a Route 243 journey. The North London short Volvos round off with VLA 99 on 243 in Aldwych. As well as the 73 longer buses, Norwood Garage also had some of the short version, but they've all moved on now. VLA 115 on the 2 at Vauxhall in 2011. VLA 128 on Brixton's Route 59 the same year. This one has since transferred to Barking for the 128. Despite all the new kit at Brixton, VLA 144 continues to work from Telford Avenue. Here it is on the 137 in Lower Sloane Streets before the Borrises came along. VLA 145 also continues to work from Brixton, and here crosses Westminster Bridge on the 159. As I mentioned earlier, Abellio will take over this route in December 2015, so this is another batch of ALX400 bodywork likely to find itself out of work and out of time. Coming right up to date, VLA 149 on Brixton Hill in July 2015. And VLA 163 passing the home garage the same day. That's as far as the numbers go now. 164 to 179 transferred to Arriva Shires at the end of 2012 to join 109, 122 and 123. So here's the former VLA 165 working Route 142 as Shires 6165. And again, approaching Brent Cross. (6179) or VLA 179 running alongside Edgware Road at Brent Cross. All three of those shots from July 2015. In 2012, another batch, DLA 110 to 121, transferred from Norwood Garage to Essex to work the TfL double-deck routes at Grays. Here's 6120, DLA 120, leaving the Romford bus park to start a Route 66 journey. The other Grays route, the 370, also runs to Romford, and the transferred VLAs worked both as a common user pool. 6121 on the 370 at South Ockenden in 2014. London United's 10.1 metre buses were known as VAs, and they had the famous centre staircase applied to ALX400 bodies and Presidents for a short time in 1999-2000. This is VA90 starting a Route 49 journey from White City bus station. The imposing brick building is the former Central Line generating station, now listed and preserved for future use as a bus park. The VA's original number series was 60 to 104, and you may still find the odd one working as a trainer in London or in the London United private hire fleet. This final section begins with a selection of mixed types that had taken past our cameras at one time or another, giving a flavour of just how common the ALX400 body bus once was. Stagecoach Trident 18251 on the 15 and a pair of DLAs on the 159 at Trafalgar Square. In outer London, particularly in the east, there are still plenty to be seen. Here's VLA 136 and 17792 in Romford. Both lengths of Trident in Romford, a short 17979 and a long 17788. Both lengths on Route 15, 17579 and longer stablemate. Rail replacements now, starting with DLA 207 at Endymion Road, Finsbury Park in 2013. VLA 127 in Camden, standing in for the Northern Line, I guess. Oh yes, to and from Golders Green. VLA 128 doing much the same thing. Arriva, helped out by Sullivan's, are the mainstay of weekend replacements on the Northern Line branches, and quite often buses are brought in from South London too. Here's VLA 152 in Camden, taking a break from the Brixton routes. DLA 342 at Mornington Crescent. I remember this well. It was the first day of LTs on Route 24, which is what we were meant to be filming. All of these were heading for Euston, where passengers could connect with their trains. Metroline's TA649 puts in an appearance. It's turning out of Bayham Street and heading for King's Cross. Arriva Shire's DAF 6012 at Kilburn Park, standing in for the Bakerloo line, and followed by Garston's stablemate 6002. As you saw earlier, this is normally the standard Route 32. On other weekends, Metroline also provides replacement buses for the Jubilee line, often as far as Baker Street, and in the western extremities of the Piccadilly and Metropolitan lines. We've shown exclusively older vehicles on railwork to illustrate this programme, but much newer kit also features. Sullivan's ALX1 in Finchley in October 2012. Backed up by ALX3. It's passing Finchley Central Station, so this is a High Barnet branch closure, and it's heading for Golders Green on the Edgware branch, which must still be running. We round off with a selection of trainers. Stagecoach 17362 arrives back at West Ham. (17395) pulls into Leighton Garage and passes another Trident on Route 55 stand. Arriva's DLA 23 at Chingford Hatch, showing off the country blue all the trainers carry. And finally, the very first low-floor double-decker, DLA1, soon to be a permanent exhibit at the London Transport Museum, and where this programme came in.